focus. Ideate, innovate, enable.
The 15th edition of Mindmine Summit, an annual flagship event of the Hero Enterprise, was back in a physical mode after the COVID hiatus, fostering a plethora of dialogues, debates and deliberations by who's who of politics, bureaucracy, industry, academics, among other opinion makers on a wide spectrum of topics. In line with the country's current state of affairs, the theme of 2022 was appropriately titled Post-Pandemic Repurposing India.
The pandemic taught us many things. It has made us rethink our priorities. It truly has been a time for introspection, a time for redefining ourselves as individuals, families, organizations, and also nations. This year, we chose a theme of repurposing India for the same reason that I spoke about individual people's views and their rethinking about themselves, that this pandemic made us think. We are also at an interesting cusp. 75 years of being an independent nation, we've come a long way. We became a larger economy than those who ruled us for over 300 years. A fantastic achievement to have become the 5th largest economy in the world. And in an extremely short period, when we were just at 11, just 10 years ago. I think this is truly a credit to all Indians and certainly to India's leadership. India's economy getting to where it is now, being the 5th largest economy, which are now going to be the big focus areas for you to move India from being the 5th largest economy further up the ladder, maybe to the 3rd.
When you're planning for the Indian economy for the next 25 years, which we are calling Amritkal, and PM has highlighted champion sectors will be the ones with which we start off. But the first litmus test would be, how would it benefit the workforce? Some at the leadership level and some at the bottom, or some in the middle. But people come out of universities, colleges, schools with different sets of skills. All of them need prospects for the future. And in that prospect is where the next 25 years is going to be geared. Today, if India is showing the way on digital payments, digital influence into your medical practice, setting up of 75 digital derived centers of learning, setting up of 75 digital banking. 75 is because we want to also remember that it happened the 75th year of independence. The digitization, the rapid influence of digitization, even in areas like agriculture. So we've shown the way since after what we heard in Davos. So that is, I think, the kind of direction. Move it more towards digitization, even more, and also make sure the workforce participation is at its maximum.
The single biggest challenge for us as a nation is to ensure the standard of living for all Indians. And I would imagine more than anything else, that's one thing we have to address. But of course, we have to address it through growth. That's the only positive way to do this. So is there a tweak or a change required in our policy to encourage more hiring and better compensation and better work conditions?
Well, if I take the example of the PLI, the Productivity Linked Incentive Scheme, one of the things was, as much as we looked at every addition to the production, every unit in addition that you produce, and at that scale, we will also looking at what will be the impact on our labor force. And when we are talking about MSMEs, that's large, but when we are talking about MSMEs on the other end of the spectrum, we are looking at in situ solutions for MSMEs wherever they are, because locally, they are the ones who give training, they are the ones who are going to be able to employ locally as much as collectively, if you think, as the large-scale units. So the policy has necessarily underlined the importance of labor and engagement of labor, and that's where we think we are pushing technology, digitalization, as much as we are pushing opportunities for work.
Thank you very much.
Addressing the inaugural session, the Road Transport and Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari talked about the 4 core pillars that would drive India's growth over the next decade.
I feel that 4 important pillars for Indian economy. One is water, power, transport and communication. Without that, we cannot have industry. Without industry, we cannot have capital investment. And without industry and capital investment, we don't have employment potential. And without that, we cannot eradicate the poverty. So first of all, we need to develop water, power, transport and communication. These are the important 4 pillars for Indian industry. But at the same time, what I feel that equally we need to concentrate on agriculture, rural and tribal area, the forest area. Because 124 aspirant districts, this is a big challenge for the country. Because these districts are socially, economically, educationally backward. So this is the time for the country that we need to take the industry up to the backward area to create industrial clusters, create irrigation in agriculture, just like river connectivity, hydropower project, tourism. We need to develop particularly in tribal area, forest area, and by which we need to create more employment potential.
You've been speaking about the need to reduce the logistics cost for the industry from 14% to 8%. What can be done?
Actually, our target is to reduce the logistic cost up to 10% before end of 24. We are making 27 green express highways. It is totally new alignment. Just from Delhi to Mumbai, presently it is taking 48 hours. Then for truck it will be for 20 or 22 hours. And for car it will be 12 hours. Up to the end of December, 80 to 90% of the road work we will complete. Presently it is 70% completed. And then green hydrogen is the fuel for the future. Just I saw 10 days before in Germany, the 1,000 kilometer train travel by using green hydrogen. So this is the future. Now I have got a green hydrogen car. So it's not a big task now. So by changing the fuel, we can reduce the cost on the fuel. At the same time, making the access control highway, we will reduce the time. And that is the reason that before end of 24, present logistic cost, which is 14 to 16%, we will reduce up to 10%. That is the target we have.
The upcoming session was an insightful conversation with the Chief of Army Staff, General Manoj Pandey, on the theme Lean, Agile and Future Ready. How should India's defense be right-sized?
When I took over the reins of the Indian Army, about 4 months back, so I laid out for myself about 8 to 10 thrust areas or focus areas, and foremost was, of course, maintaining a very high level and have a high degree of operational preparedness at all times, considering the active borders, the active commitment, deployment of our army, both on the western as well as the northern borders. So that was first. Second was also the fact that the army is undergoing transformational changes. We want to move from a manpower-intensive army to one which is technology-driven, which is more agile, as the topic of the discussion suggests. so that we are better prepared to carry out our mandate in a more effective manner. We are more future ready, so to speak. So these transformational changes in different spheres, be it the organizational restructuring, be it the operational philosophy, be it the human resource management philosophy, of which I'll perhaps, because that is something which is topical and we may like to speak of it a little later. So the aim was to re-energize these efforts and to take them forward. Third was also to, modernize the army, and that was to do with infusion of technology. How do you then, sort of from a manpower-intensive army, become more technologically or technically oriented? Next was, of course, maintaining a very high level of morale of our soldiers. Also equally important was to look after our ex-servicemen and the Veer Naris, who also are very dear to our heart. So these were some of the areas that I set about. And of course, as we went along, you had in the middle of June, the new human resource management philosophy of the army, which was put out. And this is something which is engaging our attention, and that is something which...
You're talking about the Agniveers?
Absolutely, yes. So these were some of the areas that I had set about for myself as to how to make the army future ready, to be able to fight our battles of the future in a more effective manner. The emphasis on the non-contact nature of warfare is something which we'll have to seriously look at. And that includes the components of cyber, your space warfare, as well as information warfare. Now, there are some very good lessons that come out of what is again happening in Russia and Ukraine, especially in the context of all three that I mentioned. It is, the need for armies to focus on these has come out loud and clear.
The next panel delved into the discussion on OTT versus big screens. Who is winning the battle for our screens and why?
Without much ado, let me start by putting this question to Mr. Agnihotri. Is it actually the case that there is competition between OTT and single screens and the large screen, the big screen, cinema screen, or it is just a creation, a figment of imagination of the media?
See, whenever there is a technological disruption, there will be some new channel or avenue it will find to communicate stories, to tell stories. If Kindle has come, it doesn't mean that we stop writing stories, in print. Similarly, what is happening here, OTT found so much of space, A, because there were no films were releasing. That was one of the reasons. But we have to go a little back also. What happened was that stories have to be told in a certain way so that they connect with the audience. And it's very simple. When I go to management institutes, they ask me the same question. I just tell them, okay, you pick up the 10, 15 films which you say have not worked. And you will find there is no common man in those films. There are no common issues. There's no common problem. Now, how do you expect the audience to relate with those stories? It's not about them. Any story to be successful has to either intellectually stimulate you or emotionally stimulate you. Or it has to be a physical, it should stimulate your five senses, like these superhero films and big extravagant spectacle, what you call. The problem is that we got disconnected with the audiences and we started making films for the trade. We said, okay, about the trade. And same mistake we are making again. A lot of people started making films, I don't know now, but in last couple of years, अच्छा theater में नहीं चलेगी तो OTT में तो चली जाएगी तो I am safe. And I am telling you, I am in the industry. Rumi ji also knows. Everybody talks in these terms. कि यार OTT में price safe. What should be the budget of the film? Whatever OTT gives us. So we stopped thinking that a film requires this kind of a design, this kind of a production, and we started making film for the distribution channels. I think that's, and so whenever you go wrong in fundamentals, no business will work. When TV came, I remember when Z came and Star, everybody was saying this is the end. No films after this. Films are gone, finished. But then they started consuming, we started making films for television. When music industry was on the boom, we started making it for music industry. ये कल ही आप मुझे बता रहे थे कि डायरेक्टर और एक्टर की कोई चिंता नहीं करता था, म्यूजिक डायरेक्टर नदीम श्रवण होने चाहिए बस. So he was telling me yesterday. So films were sold on their name. We are again making the same mistake, thinking that OTT is like going to end cinema. It's not going to happen. Cinema will stay. Cinema will always be the king of entertainment, storytelling. Nobody, nothing can replace it. That's what I believe.
मैं बिल्कुल एग्री करता हूँ विवेक के साथ कि सिनेमा पे बिल्कुल असर नहीं पड़ेगा. क्या है, OTT हो सिनेमा हो, दोनों इंटरटेनमेंट की विधा हैं. लोग इंटरटेन होना चाहते हैं और हम इंटरटेन करना चाहते हैं. मिसाल के मैं कैसे मिसाल दूं कि OTT और सिनेमा में क्या फ़र्क है कि जैसे एक नावल है, गोदान है, आदमी नावल घर में पढ़ता है और मुशायरे में बाहर जाता है. वहाँ एक गज़ल होती है 5 शेर की, एक नज़्म होती है छोटी, लेकिन उसके लिए आपको मुशायरे में जाना पड़ता है और आपको घर में एक नावल पढ़ना पड़ती है. ये फ़र्क है सिनेमा में और OTT. तो इसी तरह जो है आप सिनेमा भी देखते जाएंगे, OTT भी देखते जाएंगे, दोनों ही इंटरटेन करने की विधा हैं. और मैं तो सिनेमा के साथ खड़ा हूँ और ज़िंदगी भर कोशिश करूँगा कि सिनेमा ज़िंदा रहे और पब्लिक ज़िंदा रखेगी.
What I can share with you is that February when COVID finished and March is when the regular film started. We actually, when I say we, I mean cinemas across the country, we experience demand by force. March में विवेक जी की भी फिल्म आई, पर उसके अलावा बहुत सारी फिल्म्स आई जिन्होंने बहुत ही अच्छा परफॉर्मेंस दिया बॉक्स ऑफिस पे. So much so that Q1, which is April, May, June of this financial year, this calendar year, turned out to be the biggest quarter that PVR has had in the entire history of his business.
Oh, wow.
And this was not just, and we are a listed company, so all our data is available freely on our website and various other public platforms. So the fact is that in spite of COVID, 2 years of cinemas being shut, people going out of habit, people, you know, having been forced to stay at home, watch, consume content only at home, in spite of this fear that if I go to a theater or a public place, you know, there could be, I could come back with an infection. In spite of all of these issues, cinemas bounced back in a big manner. As soon as we opened, we saw a lot of reception from people. People were just, and we benefited tremendously from that demand. It is also a fact that Komalji, what he was saying, that in July and August, we've had terrible 2 months. You know, for whatever reason, and I won't get into reasons, and maybe Komalji is a better person to analyze those reasons. But we saw the worst 2 months that we've seen in the last 6-7 years. Some of the big films that we were pegging a lot of hopes on disappointed us at the box office. But that's the DNA of our business. You know, we've got peaks and valleys. Hits bhi aati hain, flops bhi aati hain. A lot of films were in production for a long time. Moods, taste, preferences, a lot of things have changed, and maybe that was the reason why we saw what we saw in July and August. But now with Brahmastra, things are looking extremely positive. But going back to the original question, I totally agree with Romi ji, and I also agree with Vivek ji that cinemas are here to stay.
Day 1 of the summit culminated with the 15th edition of the prestigious BML Munjal Awards for Business Excellence through Learning and Development.
The runners-up for private sector, we have the winner, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. For the private sector, the winner, IBM. Private sector manufacturing. Runners-up are Escorts Kubota Limited. Private sector manufacturing, the winner, Marico Limited. Moving on to the next category, the PSU. We have the runners-up, GAIL India Limited. PSU winner, Union Bank of India. For the emerging star, he has two joint winners, Turtle Shell Technologies Private Limited. The joint winner, again in the emerging star, Sunroof Technology Private Limited. There's a special mention, emerging star, Chios. The Sustained Excellence Award, the winner, Larsen & Toubro Limited.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.